Well, in another indicator as to just how open Branstad's idea of open government is, he drops his health care plan in the Iowa House after everyone has gone home for the weekend. Anyway, we're going to talk about that plan with State Senator Jack Hatch today. There's not a lot out there about it yet because, again, it just happened yesterday after folks went home. We're also going to talk about information from Physicians for Social Responsibility about the connection between climate change and famine. And later today, in the third segment of the program, Heather Ryan is going to join us.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Brother Trucker, folks, and we are back at it here today on the Fallon Forum. I want to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring our program, and also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility. And in a minute, I want to talk about some of their research, which is particularly relevant to us here in Iowa. I also want to remind folks that it being Friday, Heather Ryan will be joining us today in the studio. And also calling in on his way to, I believe, Northeast Iowa, State Senator Jack Hatch. We're going to talk about the governor's health care plan. This found its way into the Iowa House very quietly yesterday at the close of session after everybody had gone home. seems like odd timing. And we'll try to give the plan a fair hearing and see what Jack has to say about it. But at first, I want to talk about the PSR, that's Physicians for Social Responsibility, the PSR report on climate change and famine. This is a report released, I'm not quite sure how long ago, but it's fairly recent, and it's fairly disturbing. Okay, again, to just make this perfectly clear, you're no longer allowed to have an opinion about whether climate change is happening. You're no longer allowed to have an opinion about whether it's factual or not, whether human activity is part of it. Okay, let's just be real clear about it. Either you know the information, either you've taken the time to study the information, and I'm not trying to be a snob, I'm not trying to be condescending to people, but this is not a matter of fact anymore, okay? It's a matter of whether or not you know the information and have understood it well enough to know what's going on. Again, there's a range of opinions as to whether, what the impacts are going to be. And, the scientific community, they've been very, very conservative in their prognostications as to what's going to happen. Everything they've said is coming to pass. Only here's the problem. It's happening a lot more quickly. Scientists, again, science is a very conservative discipline. Unlike art, the discipline that I'm more inclined to embrace. And again, maybe the word discipline in art is a misuse of the word. But actually, having studied piano and knowing how much you have to practice, yes, discipline is needed. But artists are more, what do we want to say, liberal in their interpretation of their medium. Science is very, very precise, very precise. And I know plenty of scientists. Yeah, a bunch of them are geeks. Some of them, though, are also pretty normal dudes and dudettes. But the bottom line is they're a very, very conservative bunch. They don't just rush off and throw something out there. And so as a result, we're seeing over the past 40 years, if you look at the literature, going back more than 40 years for some people, their predictions have been very, very accurate. The only problem is they're happening a lot sooner and a lot more dramatically than the scientists thought they would. And this is very relevant to the conversation regarding PSR's research on famine. Again, climate change is already, this is not something that's going to happen. It's not a crisis in the future. It's not, we might see the world warming. We might see impacts on our ability to grow food. We might see impacts on weather. We might see sea level rise. It's all happening. And when in the realm of food, it is already threatening Earth's ability to produce food. And again, these effects are going to get worse as climate change worsens. Estimates vary, but basically, according to PSR's research, for every 1.8 degree Fahrenheit increase in the average global surface temperature, you can expect to see about a 10% decline in the yields among the world's top grain crops, and that would include corn, soybeans, cotton. Now, maybe not cotton, but rice and wheat for sure. Now, climate experts are predicting, of course, that global temperatures may rise as much as 5.4%, up to maybe 9%, if we continue burning fossil fuels at the current level. And again, the way we're going, we may increase the rate we're burning fossil fuels, especially if this Keystone pipeline goes in. I mean, that pipeline is a pipeline to disaster. As James Hansen points out, it's going to, it alone, the carbon emissions from Keystone alone, from exploiting the Alberta tar sands, the carbon emissions from that will equal everything we've already done in terms of what we've burned in our modern history. It's just phenomenal to think of how bad a decision that will be. And so again, temperatures at least rising to 5 to 9%. And in some parts of the world, that's already happened. In the very sensitive Arctic region, again, there are plenty of canaries in the mine. We talked about the oysters in Puget Sound as being one canary in the mine, indicating problems for the oceans. But problems for the whole planet, pretty evident in what's happening in the Arctic, where by some reckoning, the temperature has already risen 6 to 7 degrees. So if we continue burning fossil fuels at our current rate, that's what we're going to see. It could lead to a 30% to up as high as 50% decline in crop production. And already, in the current reality, 1 in 7 people, including folks living in the U.S., are already going hungry every day. Hunger is already a problem in this world. it is already a challenge to meet the food demands of a growing global population. And we could have a conversation about whether the world's population should be growing or not and what to do about that. But let's accept the reality for now, for this conversation, that it is happening. And every one of those people would love to have 3 square meals a day. It ain't happening right now. And the likelihood of it happening less is very probable with the models that we see presented for climate change. Okay, so again, those models, most of them only consider the effect of rising temperatures and CO2 levels on crop growth, and thus they represent a relatively conservative scenario. And again, scientists tend to be conservative, so I understand that. But as PSR points out, climate change will disrupt food production and distribution in other ways as well, ways that are somewhat hard to identify and wrap your hands around. But here are some of the examples they present. Again, more droughts. And there is pretty much universal agreement in the scientific community that we will see more droughts as climate change exacerbates. That's going to cause large-scale crop loss. Again, not just in other parts of the world, folks, but here as well. And we saw that here last year. And we are not out of the drought scenario yet. In fact, we're going to have Bill Stowe on this program sometime soon to talk more about what the what the weather situation looks like here in Iowa relative to droughts. Also, again, because along with droughts, you've got heat waves. These are going to be more frequent, more severe. They're going to last longer, and they're going to kill crops. I saw an example of this in my own garden last year. Actually, last year I managed to avoid the problem. It was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I got my I planted my tomatoes, within that window, mid to late May, and I got them in so late. Again, that's not that late at all. I got them in late enough where they were hit by that really, really hot heat, and they didn't germinate. They didn't pollinate. I had no tomatoes until October. They finally pollinated after the worst heat died down, and I had a decent crop, but not till October. Last year I planted them earlier, and even though we had hotter temps last year, I was able to get a better crop at the expected time, August. But sometimes you can't just adapt by planting stuff a little bit later or earlier. Sometimes you're going to get hit hard no matter what you try to do. Okay, what else does PSR point out? Okay, because of the changing conditions, there are pests, both insects and funguses and blights and whatnot, that are going to thrive in the new climate conditions. And they're already beginning to destroy crops. And I've seen some of that as well. There are blights that have never affected my brassicas before. Brassicas meaning mostly broccoli in this case, to some extent cauliflower as well. I've never had problems with these kinds. Mostly it's cabbage lopers that I have trouble with. Those little white butterflies, yeah, I want to squish every one of them. Sorry, vegetarian friends, didn't mean to offend anybody there. But yeah, cabbage lopers, yeah, that's not the worst problem anymore for my broccoli and cauliflower. It's this, and I can't remember the name of it now, it's a fungus that just takes over the foliage and ruins the crop health, and I don't get anything out of it. I haven't had a cauliflower head in a couple, 3 years now. So along with that, and again, heavy rains, again, this is the flip side. Heavy rains, storms, stronger storms than we've been used to. And again, we got lucky last year on tornadoes because it was so dry. There just wasn't the storm activity to generate the usual rash of tornadoes the year before, which again is very much consistent with the climate models, where you've got lots of storms, strong ones, lots of rain. That model generated a heck of a lot of tornadic activity in 2011, and we're likely to see that continue. And of course, not only are tornadoes bad for your individual health, but they can flatten crops, they can tear out an entire field. It's not just the winds, the rains can flatten your crops. They can erode soil. There's lots of issues there that we aren't used to dealing with, because you don't get that kind of rainfall. Once in a while it happens. It's not a foreign experience to have a hard rain in the old climate model. But the point is, in the new climate model, and we're already seeing it take effect, it happens a lot more dramatically and a lot more often. Okay, so what else? Well, beyond Iowa, melting glaciers, changing river flows, those are going to reduce water availability for irrigation. They're also going to reduce water availability for, minor things like drinking. We've got some major water issues going on, but certainly when it affects agriculture. Here in Iowa, we've been fortunate to be able to have a fairly consistent, historically, a consistent pattern of rainfall that makes it, usually it works well to farm without irrigation. I was just going over a map of where the Great March for Climate Change is likely to walk through next year. And I was looking in Colorado. Every farm field there, you can see the map from the air. Every farm field is irrigated, and I don't, as aquifers are challenged, and especially if they do build that Keystone Pipeline, and I'm still hoping Obama comes to his senses on this and doesn't do it. But if they do build that Keystone Pipeline across Nebraska over the Oglala Aquifer, and you have a spill like we've had in Arkansas, Minnesota, Michigan, elsewhere, if you have that kind of a spill over the aquifer, it could be a disaster for a lot of reasons, but in the context of our conversation here, for agriculture as well. So, again, rising sea levels, storm surges, that's not going to affect Iowa, except that, again, all those dang Yankee fans from New York are going to move here once Manhattan's underwater. But again, it's going to affect agriculture in a lot of areas of the world. You've got some pretty good farmland along coastal regions, and a lot of that will be affected by rising sea levels and by storm surges. And another thing I had not even thought of that PSR mentions is higher ozone levels, and those higher ozone levels can damage plants and reduce crop yields. Again, we're already seeing the effects, and it's just going to continue. A little more specific information that PSR shares. This is a really good paper they put out. It's called Climate Change and Famine. I believe it's probably available on their website. I have hard copy here because I'm a Neanderthal man when it comes to these things. I love having hard copy. Anyway, I think you can probably get it on their website. They talk a little more specifically about rising temperatures. The effects of warmer temperatures on crop production, of course, will vary. In some places, it might actually help, but don't expect that to be the norm, and don't bank on that. But almost all estimates indicate eventual reduced overall crop yields across the planet. Again, you may be one of those lucky farmers or in one of those lucky zones where you can benefit from that increased carbon, that increased warmth. Maybe Canada is going to become the next superpower. Who knows? Canada and Russia. Who knows? Canada, Russia, and Kazakhstan. Okay? Higher temperatures decrease rates of photosynthesis. Good point. They reduce soil moisture. I certainly saw that. Last year, I was watering my garden every single day. Every day. It got to be a burden, but I had to do it every single day. And when it was above 90, above 100, I would go out there in the evening. Sometimes I would go out there at night when the water pressure was a bit better. You still would water really, really generously, and the next day it would all be drank up. Those plants were just thirsty. So, again, that increased need for moisture, those drier conditions can lead to better survival rates among plant pests, among funguses, blights, diseases, and of course, weeds. It is amazing to me how well weeds do. This is an example. Your vegetable crops can't do what purslane can do. Okay, I was just amazed last year. I have cold frames. Cold frames are a wooden box with a glass panel over it, and in that in that cold frame, you can start lettuce and spinach, and in the fall you can start radishes and carrots and other cool weather crops earlier in the season. It's a great idea. But once the weather starts heating up, when it gets to 60 or certainly 70 degrees, you want to take that cold frame window off or your plants will bake. I left those cold frames were empty last summer because I'd harvested my spring crops. And inside, I left the glass panes on, and inside, weeds started growing. I didn't water them. When it got to be 106 here in Des Moines, it had to be 120 or 30 inside the cold frame. I don't know how hot it got in there, but it had to be hot enough to cook an egg. And again, I looked in there and I saw purslane growing and thriving. This is 120, 130 degree heat, no water, and this plant is thriving. So yeah, your gardens, your crops, your fields of beans and corn and whatnot may struggle in this weather that we're likely to have more and more of with climate change. But you can count on those weeds knowing how to get through it, and they'll get through it in style. Okay, so the conclusion that PSR comes to with this paper on climate change and famine, farmers are resilient. Yeah, we know that. And frequently adapt to changes in weather. However, climate change will create conditions outside of any human experience, challenging all of us, farmers especially, to adapt. And again, the quicker you adapt to a crisis, the better your chances of surviving that crisis are. Right now, we are not adapting at all, or very minimally. We're not getting the message from Mother Nature. We're not listening to scientists. We're not paying attention like we need to. Okay. Again, that's the key thing I think here is that people need to adapt sooner rather than later. And to the extent that that happens, we may be able to weather, so to speak, this transition. But make no mistake about it. Again, climate change, you're not allowed to have an opinion about that anymore, just like you're not allowed to have an opinion on whether blacks are fully human. Remember, according to U.S. law, years and years ago, blacks were only, what, 2/3 or was it 3/5 human? You're not allowed to say that gays and lesbians can't marry. I know some people still do that. You're not allowed to say that women shouldn't be able to vote. You're not allowed to say that DDT is something good or that cigarette smoking is good for you. I mean, those things are all in our past. You could have had an opinion about that before the scientific consensus was really clear. Same with climate change. This is no longer a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact, and you can embrace the fact or you can live in denial. And the longer we choose to live in denial, the more we delay on adapting, mitigating, reducing our carbon footprint, and beginning to do what we've got to do to change. The longer we delay on that, the more frightening the consequences. So again, I want to thank PSR for this great report. I want to move on because we've got plenty more to talk about. We're going to talk about Governor Branstad's health care plan, and Senator Jack Hatch is going to join us for that. I do want to throw out a few kudos to some letter to the editor writers today regarding the nomination of Bob Kramer and Craig Lang to the Board of Regents. Some good thoughts on that. We'll talk about that. And then later in the program, Heather Ryan's going to join us. So stick around for part 2 of the show. I do want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. Again, Gateway has become not just my grocery store with so much food from local sources, but also a fantastic cafe. I love their Sunday brunch, breakfast, if you want to get up early enough. It's a great deal. You ought to check it out. Fantastic Eggs Benedict. And also a great selection of entrees for dinner as well, and at very, very affordable prices. Again, the grocery store itself, I really want to commend Gateway for helping to support local farmers by showcasing a lot of great local food from local producers. One of my favorite discoveries this past week was a big bag of salad mix from a local farmer. I've been hungry for fresh salad greens for a while, and nice to get them at the end of March. Anyway, folks, I'll be back in a few minutes. Again, check out Gateway Marketing Cafe at 20th and Woodland. We'll be back soon, and Jack Hatch will be joining us shortly.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait, howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Mr. Baber's Neighbors, and we are back to the conversation here today on the Fallon Forum. We're expecting Jack Hatch to be joining us shortly. He's in transit, but hopefully the connection will be good, and we'll get to talk with him a little bit about Governor Branstad's health care plan for the poor. Again, knowing the track record of Branstad and issues relevant to those in poverty, it's probably not going to be anything we can get excited about, but let's give it a fair shake. I want to get Senator Hatch's opinion on it because he's been probably the most prominent legislative leader when it comes to health care reform. But first, I want to talk about another issue at the State House, and that is the appointment of Robert Kramer and the reappointment of Craig Lang to the Iowa Board of Regents. As folks probably know, those appointments have come under fire from Senate Democrats who, all the signals are saying, hey, these appointments probably aren't going to go through. And again, so people know, it takes a 2/3 majority of the Iowa Senate to approve any gubernatorial appointment. Many gubernatorial appointments. Let's say that, and that would be 34 votes. So all you need is 17 votes to take one of these nominees down, and that happens once in a while. And usually, this is where the minority party in the Senate can have its greatest influence. Minority parties don't get to decide much. I speak from experience, having served in the minority in the Iowa House for 14 years. Yeah, it was great. I came in and Democrats lost the majority. When I went out, they regained it. It almost, I look up at the sky and say, why? Why is this happening to me? Anyway, you don't get a lot done. But when it comes to confirmations, you can have your say. So, Kevin Pokorny, a guy I know, writes a great letter today. He's having a difficult time understanding the Des Moines Register's endorsement of accepting the nominations of Kramer and Lang. I didn't understand that either. The Register points out, says Pokorny, that Kramer, who is chairman of the Family Leader, has publicly spoken his opposition to rights for gays and lesbians. And that is true. Again, he leads an organization that considers homosexuality as, quote, harmful to the persons who engage in it and to society at large, and can never be affirmed. Now, Pokorny points out a person's sexual orientation is a protected class under the Iowa civil rights law. This is even beyond the marriage equality issue. Equivalent to one's race or sex. It's a protected class. It's the law of the land in Iowa, and Kramer does not accept it. Now, if a nominee for the Board of Regents led an organization that opposed efforts to treat women or blacks as equivalent to men or Caucasians, would the Register editorial board state that this, quote, single issue should not be disqualification to public service? Boom, Kevin Picorni, you nailed that one. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We have this letter by Ken Schumacher, who I don't know, a guy from Ames, who says, contrary to assertions by some Register readers, the questions surrounding the appointments of Lang and Kramer to the Board of Regents are not partisan issues. And I know there was an attempt to paint them as partisan issues. They're academic freedom and inclusiveness issues. Both are pivotal to any academic institution, but certainly to public universities engaged in research. Activities and statements by these two men, by Kramer and by Lang, have demonstrated their blindness to the importance of these issues and brought to our attention their unsuitability to lead such institutions. Again, the criticism that Picorni laid out was specifically on Kramer's stand on GLBT equality. This one goes a little bit further, and the third one I want to call attention to goes a bit further because I think of equal importance, of equal concern, is the way in which members of the Board of Regents have tried to micromanage the intellectual and academic integrity of the university, particularly when it comes to agriculture. Angie Carter, an ISU grad student, who I think probably steps out on a limb once in a while here, and I admire her for doing it because I think she could actually get herself in a bit of trouble here. She points out that Governor Branstad recently stated that Iowa State University should speak with, quote, one voice regarding agricultural research. Branstad's comment identifies a political agenda that has constrained academic freedom and compromises the credibility of ISU. This coming from an ISU grad student. Angie says, in addition to the recent Harkin Institute controversy, we have witnessed this pressure to speak with one voice in the 2009 Leopold Center director search. Ah, yes, remember that? The discouragement of questions on campus regarding ISU's then partnership in Regent Bruce Rasteter's Agrisol project. Yes, Agrisol, the effort in Tanzania to take a huge tract of farmland and turn it into an industrial agriculture operation run by Bruce Rasteter. Yeah, there were real solid attempts to keep this under wraps, to not have people talk about this. And again, I tried so hard to get somebody from the College of Ag to come on this program and talk about this. But again, there's a lot of pressure for the college to, quote, speak with one voice. Carter finishes her letter by saying, Branstad, Regent Lang, and Regent Rasteter are successfully shaping, quote, one voice at ISU in regards to agricultural resource. And that is the voice of corporate agriculture. Thank you. And again, folks, some really good commentary in the paper today on the proposed nomination or the appointment. Yeah, what am I going to say? The appointment of Lang and Kramer, and the question of whether or not they will be approved by the Iowa Senate. Okay, I'm getting distracted here because I think we've got our guest Jack Hatch on the line. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ed.
Are you in transit?
I am indeed.
Good. Well, drive safe and don't do any texting.
I won't. Talking's tough enough.
Okay. Hey, we've got a nice picture of you up on our screen here.
Well, anything's better than what's real, so I probably appreciate it.
All right. So, hey, yesterday, Branstad, maybe you saw this coming. Maybe some folks on the inside saw it coming. A lot of us, I didn't expect to see a significant health care proposal released at the State House yesterday after folks had gone home for the weekend. I mean, beyond the content and the detail of what's proposed, what about the timing?
I think the timing was determined by the governor so that few people would have an opportunity to comment on it. With everybody gone, we scurried around to get our comments out. I was prepared for it. But if we were in session, you would have TV cameras there, sure. 7 or 8, 9 reporters. You have some people have to, actually would be able to be responsible and accountable from the governor's plan. And they weren't. It's not unusual. He developed this plan in the basement of the Capitol with just a few of his advisors. He was unwilling to accept any kind of discussion with us during the development of his plan. We got briefings on it. but nothing in particular. So we weren't surprised with the content. The content is not complimentary to the ability or the notion that people in the state deserve health care, and that those that are most chronically ill are the poorest. And expanding Medicaid would provide that kind of health care coverage for them, but the governor didn't want to do that.
Now, everybody, I mean, even a lot of Republican governors across the nation are saying expanding Medicaid is the best option. And by not doing that, Branstad is actually going to cover less people and cost the state more money. I mean, Iowans are going to have to pay more money because we reject the federal opportunity. But let me, just looking at the story in today's paper regarding the plan, on the surface, I mean, it says under Branstad's plan, participants would be expected to pay small monthly premiums, which they could earn back by undergoing physical exams, health risk assessments, and other measures to help offset costly illnesses. So basically, he's trying to focus on preventive stuff. And if you, I mean, I don't know how much, what kind of amount is a small amount for a poor person to pay, but under the proposal, I mean, just on the surface, that part sounds like a decent idea. Okay, so you pay a little bit, you do the right thing in terms of your health, you get it back. Okay.
Let's back up there. In our plan, we have preventive medicine. We have preventive care. Okay. It's very critical that people go and are assigned to a medical home. I think he has that same type of thing. But he's dangling a carrot out in front of people about you'll get your premiums back. Under federal law, you can't spend more than 5% of your income. But for an eligible person on Medicaid under these plans. But that translates to a person that is 100% of poverty, which is what he's talking about, to be about $700 a year. Now, we know that disposable income for someone who's living on $11,500 a year is pretty minuscule.
Yeah.
And that his plan says if you miss the payment and you don't get it paid back in 60 days, you're off the program and you can't get back in for a year. It's punitive. I don't think the governor or his people really understand the culture of low-income Iowans or low-income people. They are struggling every day.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is take them off of the health care that we are fighting so hard to get them on.
Well, the governor certainly made it.
That's not acceptable.
Yeah. Okay. So the small amount that Governor Branstad would expect somebody earning $11,000 to pay a year would be $700.
That's something like that.
That's a lot. And again, he'll say, well, you'll get that back if you do all the right things. But I see he has a list of people that you're allowed to go to. You can't just go to any physician. You've got to go to a.
The other part of this is that this is not open access. You just he's going to assign you to a provider, to a location. That's one of the problems with Iowa Care under the existing system, where you can only go to, 2 hospitals and 7 clinics around the state. People want to be able to, if you're going to have preventive medicine, if you're going to be able to get healthier, you are going to have to go to a doctor or a provider that you want, that you choose. And if you choose it, you have a higher probability of continuing that care. And the whole medical home notion is a coordination of care, that you're no longer going to one provider, but you're going to a team of people. We've thought this out in our proposal. This is where we want to go. The governor is taunting with that same idea, but he's really using it as a punitive measure, and he's then accepting everybody above to 100% of poverty. He says you have to buy your own insurance.
Right.
New insurance exchange.
I saw that. And when will that insurance exchange actually be available?
By October of this year.
By October, okay. And again, it's unlikely that that folks above 100% of poverty, say you're just barely getting by, beyond that, it's unlikely you'd be able to afford what would be offered through the exchange.
That's correct.
And now your plan, I believe, and under Medicaid, you would be covered up to, is it 138%?
138%.
Okay, and that's still not a lot. I mean, that's still what? An individual earning what, $15,000, $16,000 a year? That's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money. The governor will cover up to 138% if you buy your own insurance, but there is significant research from the Rand Corporation, the Kellogg Corporation, Roger Woods Foundation, that suggests that if anybody's putting in a premium or is required to pay co-payments, the ability to keep those people in the plan shrinks dramatically, and over 80% of the people would fail in providing themselves the premiums. It's not because they don't want to. They want to. It's because they're poor and they can't.
Right.
This is what these very, very conservative, neoconservative Republicans are kind of unable to digest.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that Governor Branstad released this plan, I mean, when politicians announce it, when a press release or something that they consider significant comes out on a Friday, or in this case on a Thursday when the legislature is going home, it's not something they're particularly proud of, and they realize it's going to be a hard sell to the people. And that seems to be the exact case in this situation too.
I think you're right. I think it's hard to really kind of accept this proposal. But let me really give a challenge to the Republicans now in the legislature, both in the House and Senate. They're the ones that are going to make the decision to adjust the governor's plan, and I hope they seriously look at our plan and let's sit down and have discussion so we can find a not just a compromise, but a very practical solution that will solve the problem of people not having insurance, people getting sick and staying sick, and people going bankrupt because of medical bills. We have an opportunity here to do something that no other legislature has done for, maybe certainly through my whole lifetime in the legislature, where you will actually have the ability to save people's lives.
Yeah.
That's what's at stake here. We will be able to extend the life of individuals because of what we do.
Right. Jack, I really want to thank you for responding on short notice and for taking the time to call in.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Ed.
You're juggling your phone there, I hope, not your wheel.
No, I'm actually, I just stopped. I'm getting something to drink, and then I'm off again. So Thank you for letting me on, and I'll be talking to you later.
Great. Thank you so much. Folks, that's State Senator Jack Hatch. We've been talking about Governor Branstad's health care plan for the poor, which was just dropped at the legislature yesterday afternoon after most people had gone home for the day. Anyway, we'll talk about some other political matters when Heather Ryan joins us in the final segment of the show. I do want to thank Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring this segment of our show. You should contact Ying Sa at 288-3188. If you have not yet sorted out your taxes, again, the tax deadline is approaching. It's April 15th. You should get some help, folks, because it's not simple. Doing taxes is complex, and you can make lots of mistakes. I know I speak from experience, may have made lots of mistakes. So give Ying a shout at 288-3188. Get your taxes done right the first time. I'll be back in a minute with Heather Ryan.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
This is Dr. Holding, the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruitcake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
Local farms, global flavor. That's the secret to Hawk's growing popularity. The best meals begin with the best ingredients, and 90% of Hawk's ingredients come from local farms. In addition to seasonal fruits and vegetables, Hawk features grass-fed beef and lamb and pasture-raised chicken and duck, all raised without hormones, steroids, or cages. The coffee is fair trade, locally roasted, and Hawk's House liquors come from right here in Iowa. Hawk's owners go the extra mile, composting organic waste and recycling. For more information or to make reservations, visit hawktable.com. That's HOQ table.com.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Thank you, Max Wellman, for kicking off the final segment of today's program. I want to thank Tinker Heating and Cooling for sponsoring this segment of our show. A couple other plugs. Folks, the Great March for Climate Action continues to mobilize. We're getting a tremendous, I can't believe what's happened in a month. We've already raised $45,000. We've got 4 volunteers working really hard every day on this stuff. We are beginning to identify contacts in colleges around the country. We've got a fantastic website. You can check that out at climatemarch.org. And also, there's a Facebook page, which, of course, you need to like. Because that's all those vehicles anymore, social media, are really, really helpful at moving this along. We're not expecting a lot of love from the corporate press, all right? It's hard enough getting love from the alternative press. But yesterday, we actually had our first national media hit. It was a mention in one of Lee Camp's Moment of Clarity videos about one thing people can do if they are frustrated by the big oil spill in Arkansas. So again, check out what's going on with the Great Climate March, a Great March for Climate Action, and do get involved. And while you're at it too, check out the Fallon Forum website where you can find podcasts, a lot of information that I don't get to share regularly on this program. And also there is a Fallon Forum page as well. It's just under my name, Ed Fallon. Okay, welcoming to the show here every Friday, we are blessed, or if you are Frank from Des Moines, cursed, to have Heather Ryan in the studio. Na-na-na-na, Heather. Na-na-na-na-na-na. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love being here, Ed. I tell you, I look forward to this all week.
Yeah, well, this is the culmination of your week, right? You get to come here and vent after all the horrible things that happened to you.
You know, it is. It is. I can't ask for better. If I am allowed to vent somewhere in a public forum, then you know it's my forte.
Well, just don't drop any F-bombs and we're good.
Forum.
Well,
darn!
Yeah, well, that's a 5-letter F-bomb, so it's not quite so bad. So you've been wrestling with the Des Moines School District this week.
Yeah, actually, if you were watching Channel 13 News a couple days ago, I think the 5 people that watched Channel 13 News, I was one of them that particular day. But they ran a story on the school board. The Des Moines Public Schools sent out around 300 letters denying parents who did open enrollment, or requested open enrollment, I should say, access to new schools for their children or a new school for their kindergartner based on their socioeconomic status. And lo and behold, one of said parents was me.
So you're too wealthy to be able to move?
Apparently, no, I'm too poor. But
so is that really you're too poor? So they won't allow. They don't want. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. They don't want poor people.
It was one long.
My mind's not working.
I know. I know. It's almost unbelievable. It was almost too much for me to wrap my head around, because the one long run-on sentence that is the paragraph, the first paragraph, is almost mind-boggling. They're saying that we don't want a certain percentage of too poor or too rich people to go to any one school. So I think the ratio is 10% under a certain socioeconomic status. Which
How do they
means,
measure that?
I don't know. That never goes into that, and they never say exactly what their criteria is, how many people are currently enrolled, how many they're accepting, how many are leaving. They never go into any of that. So you're just kind of going on the basis that, okay, I'm too poor, they won't let me leave the school.
So why? And how old is your daughter?
She is 5 right now, so she's in kindergarten right now.
Okay, and what was your interest in moving her to a different school?
Well, the current school that she's in is not even a school that's close to us. You have to know first, you know, that we've been struggling with the schools to begin with. We had enrolled her in our home school, which was Stowe. It's on the east side, East 33rd. It's not a great school. I mean, it's got its own challenges, but it's close to us, and it's, you know.
Why is it not a great school?
You know, the testings are the reading level, the math level tests are really low. A lot of East Side schools are really just challenged.
Just some kids who aren't maybe getting the
they're not
they need at home.
Who knows? They're not challenged at home. They're not challenged at school. I don't know. I just know that the grade levels are low. If you go to like the school rating websites and see what yours is rated 1 to 10, Stowe's like a 1.
Okay.
You know, and a lot of the schools around us the highest ones are like 3.
So where did you want to send her?
We were hoping for Phillips.
That's on the south side.
Well, it's
southeast, right?
No, it's actually within walking distance to our house too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's right by Kmart on Hubble.
So it's as close as Stowe.
Yes,
it's as much of a neighborhood school
opposite
for
direction.
you.
Mm-hmm. But what they have us going to is Capitol View, which is about 3 miles from our house.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
So
right?
you're basically wanting to open and enroll to a school in your neighborhood.
Yes. Bizarre. Crazy.
Okay. I don't get that at all. I mean, you would think ideally you'd want to save parents and kids the time and trouble.
And money. I mean,
And
I'd
money.
be taking her to
Sure.
school. Right now they bus her 3 miles to, 3 miles from, you know, every day.
Well, that makes no. So your proposal actually saves the taxpayers money.
It does. It does.
Oh, this makes no sense at all.
And they redistricted us like one day before she was supposed to register. So we registered her for Stowe, thinking, well, of course, that makes sense. She'd be going to Stowe. It's right up the street. And then they redistricted us like on Tuesday. Enrollment was on a Wednesday, and they called us and said, "Oh, well, no, sorry, you enrolled in the wrong school. You're supposed to go to Capitol View."
So they wrote you a letter and called you, or you called them.
No, this time they wrote me a letter. The first
Right.
time when we first enrolled Ireland in kindergarten, we enrolled her in the wrong school accidentally. And then they called us and said, "Oh, well, you're supposed to be going to Capitol View."
Gotcha, okay.
At the first of the year, we actually homeschooled her because the Capitol View is a gigantic school, about 700 students. It's huge. It's one of the biggest.
We have to thank Eric Witherspoon for that monstrosity. I mean, you know, this is why I'm really happy to have a Tom Mahart, who I know and is a great guy, did a great job at Harding, is now the superintendent. And again, the first local guy we've had for a while. I mean, Nancy Sebring, okay, enough said there. Eric Witherspoon, I mean, he misrepresented, in my opinion, badly misrepresented the local option sales tax initiative.
I remember
Ended up
that.
tearing down a bunch of nice neighborhood schools and then creating these huge
Capitol
schools.
View was one of those.
Yeah, and there's been a whole bunch of those schools created that are huge and less personal, less neighborhood oriented. But what fascinates me here is you're trying to send your kid to the closest school, and they're saying no. I don't.
And I'm not even asking for the gold standard. You know, none of these schools are fantastically rated schools. Nobody is screaming, "Oh, this is the best school in the world." I'm just trying to send her to something that's more suited to her.
Okay, and again, the reason given is you're too poor. You can't. They don't want any more poor kids in Phillips.
Right. Keep your riffraff over there. We've got enough poor students already. But thanks for asking.
There's got to be some way around that. There's got to be.
You would think so.
There's got. I mean, this sounds like a decision made by a bureaucracy that's not really thinking about the individuals involved.
Well,
either the kid or the parents.
That's giving them
or the
benefit of the doubt there, Ed. You're giving them
I'm
way
always
too
willing
much
to try
credit.
to do that. I'm willing to try.
We went to the school board meeting on Tuesday, I believe it was, and then there's another one where I'll actually speak. I just wanted to get all my ducks in a row before I actually open my mouth. But there was one.
That's a first.
Well, I thought maybe there's something I'm missing. What am I missing? There must be something. But there was one guy that just lives about 3 blocks from me, got up there and said, we were denied because of socioeconomic status. And I'm waiting. Okay, they're going to give him some kind of clarity here, and I'm going to get it. And they didn't. They said, talk to our lawyer.
Tatular alert.
That was it.
Oh gosh. All
So
right.
I'm scratching my head going, what?
Well, now I don't. Now I can't. I don't think the new ward system has affected the entire district yet. But if it hasn't, it should soon. And you should have a ward representative from the east side. Maybe that person would be able to help cut through some of this silliness. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm sure.
I do know this. There are 4 members of the 7-member school board up for election this fall.
Maybe I should run. Maybe
you should run, but yeah, maybe you should, or at least get behind. I mean, there are some people on the board that have got to go, and I'm gonna call out Terry Caldwell Johnson specifically. I mean, when you tell the press that you don't feel you have any obligation to talk with them about how you vote on something. I mean,
that's
I'm
why
sorry,
you're there.
You're so out of touch.
That is why you're there. That is your obligation.
Yeah, the press. The press. That's who we. 99% of us aren't going to make it to the school board meeting, but we're going to read about it or see the proceedings on the TV or hear about it on the radio or listen to a talk show, and then we're going to find out what happened. And if you don't want to comment about why you voted a certain way, you're abdicating your responsibility as a public official to communicate with us, your constituents. So. This fall, I really hope there'll be people out running against some of the school board. Again, I don't want to paint the entire board with one brush. I think there's some really good people on there. But when you get somebody who refuses to be accountable, you got a problem.
I'm not gonna disagree with you there. I mean, I was astounded when they told this guy who was genuinely concerned about his child being basically, disenfranchised because he was in the same boat as us. He doesn't make enough money to open and enroll his child into another school. And their response was, our counsel's over there. Go talk to them.
Legal counsel.
Yes, our legal counsel. And then, of course, you can hear, they're like 4 feet away from me. You can hear what she's saying. And she's like, well, I'll get back to you on that one. So it's like the brush off, you're not rich, so you're not that important. And I can't tell you how infuriating it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
all right. You cannot see the steam rising from Heather's head here on the program, but if we could find a way to color that a little bit,
deep breath. So, school board meeting. I encourage everybody to go this next time. There are so many big issues in front of it right now, including the SROs, the school police officers they're putting in the schools, and there's just so many big issues right now. People don't get as involved in school board as they really probably should.
Yeah. Well, and then the police officer issue is gaining some interest too. That's some folks. Think that's right. Some folks feel it goes way too far.
I think it goes way too far, way too far. And I hope it is growing momentum. I really do hope that it's gaining steam.
What's that going to cost us?
$500,000
a year.
Yes, a year. And 60% of it will be picked up by the state of Iowa or Des Moines, and 40% will be put on the backs of the schools. So as if we don't have enough problems.
The city
with
of Des Moines pays for 60% of it?
Correct.
The city of Des Moines.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
I wonder if that's through any kind of federal money. Interesting.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know the answer to that. And it's just in the proposal state right now. So if you have a strong feeling about it, I highly encourage you, please go.
All right.
I know my daughter Heaven is very emotionally attached to it. So we'll be going and voicing our concern. It's basically you put more police officers in the school, and this is a direct response to the shootings, the mass shootings at the schools. This is not because they feel like East High School has more fights. This is because they feel like East High School is going to have a mass shooting. And to me, it's just regurgitation of NRA, what NRA tells us to do. And that's beyond me. You don't answer guns with guns. And that's what they're saying to do.
Yeah, well. All right, well, Heather Ryan, folks. You never know what Heather Ryan's going to talk about, and neither do I. Anyway, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I'm really glad we have not talked about the school board or school proceedings in a while, so I'm really glad you brought this up. And again, I would say, our new superintendent is a great guy, and I would not hesitate to approach him about this problem. And maybe you could find 1 or 2 sympathetic board members you could talk to as well. But at some point you just got to say, okay, I'm not going to get any satisfaction from the bureaucracy. I'm not going to get any satisfaction from the legal counsel. I've got to go to the people who are actually elected by us. And of course, the superintendent is not elected by us, but he is accountable directly to the 7 people whom we elect.
Right.
So maybe you will run for the school board next year.
Who knows?
All right. Well, anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing this studio. I want to encourage people again to go to the Fallon Forum website, download some of our other podcasts. You'll notice on YouTube, we have a YouTube account as well. YouTube is funny because it doesn't record visits to the videos if you just want to watch one segment or 10 or 15 minutes of it. That's why the total number of hits to this show, 1,450 viewers and listeners per show. That's pretty good. We're growing, and we're growing because folks like you understand the importance of an alternative to right-wing radio and the corporate-owned media. So thank you for doing your part. And again, do check out the Great March for Climate Action's website as well. And finally, I want to thank Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling. Again, maybe you're done thinking about servicing your furnace, but you're probably ready to start thinking about servicing your air conditioning unit. So give Tinker a shout. He's been doing this for 30-plus years. He's a strong supporter of this program. He's got strong opinions, so you don't pay any extra for those opinions, but they're usually pretty interesting. So give him a shout. He does great work. 371-2114, 371-2114. That's Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling. I will be back on Monday.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
You see,